Thank you for listening to the Court of Public Opinion. It is Saturday morning. We're revisiting the story on Laura Silsby and the State Department and the investigation. This report was from NBC. And at the time, Chuck Todd, who was reporting on this story, which really kind of was the story that kind of broke open this large investigation into Laura Silsby, who was convicted of kidnapping at the Haitian border. A lot of the stories about the story that people call Pizzagate or Pedogate, really it's this story that started it. A lot of people have not made that clear. This has not really been a clear issue. There's a lot of cases where they're charging people with sex crimes against children. And that's why we want to revisit it, because of these reports. And these were what was, and if you dig a little deeper into the story, regarding the State Department and the investigation between the Haitian government and the State Department, that would explain that, and that information below in the description box. Let's state the real issues around sex crimes against children and the way it's worded, labeled. They have all kinds of new language for this, and that was kind of one of the concerns. A lot of people are not making that clarification. So when Lee Stranahan reported from N3, excuse me, that theories like that are thrown around, in some cases, that's true. That's why you investigate them, and before anyone accuses anybody of anything, they do have to do thorough investigation, and that language is used too loosely, and that concerns a lot of people. That's why people want to know about this. But you have to report it honestly, and or don't report on it at all. And I think that there's this sense of urgency. People want to know what this involves, and we've heard stories about this for years, about where there's child pedophile rings that link judges and police officers, and now you're hearing arrests where there are judges being arrested regarding links to child pornography and et cetera, police departments. This is what you hear on the news. So they have to thoroughly investigate it, or what ends up happening is this information it could destroy somebody. It could destroy their livelihood. And in one case, I was, a friend of mine, somebody I got to know on the internet, he was a sexual abuse survivor. He was a military soldier, and he was attacked in his barracks and raped. And he later committed suicide. So I realized that this is a very serious issue. We don't want to use, we want to be very careful about accusations. That's why I'm very, very uncomfortable with when you hear those reports and you don't have evidence to support it. That's why oftentimes we can't report on something unless it's been investigated or it's already been reported. And a lot of times the best way to go about these reports is wait till the court case, or wait till these cases go to court. And I refer to the case logs instead of referring to active ongoing investigation. I think that's a safe way to go. It's called responsible reporting for the reason that they don't want to be falsely accusing people. That is very serious. You get into slander issues like that, and I'm very, very concerned, because in the social media and everybody wants to know the information now, these investigations take actually a very long time, and I'm very concerned. I've seen innocent people go to jail for something they did not do. I've seen innocent people, I've been personally affected by that, and where people want to charge somebody, and it's easy to make those accusations. I hope that we never ever go down that road. That's why it's so important to, just be careful until these investigations are, they do continue. But as you see these news reports, when it's reported on the news, of course there's active and ongoing investigations, and I know people want to know that information. But in some cases, regarding victims of violent crime, it's for their own protection and safety that these cases are carefully investigated, because that poses a threat to the victims. And oftentimes what you hear is that they'll put the victims on the hot seat, and they'll interrogate the victims for the mere purpose that people do not want to be falsely accused. But it's either the crime itself is the real issue, or the false accusation. So in order to eliminate that problem, and they do this carefully, because oftentimes what ends up happening is people retaliate on these reports. And there is a legal process in which reassures the safety of the victims as well as those who, quote, are being accused of this. And I find that's really hard to do, because I know that the initial reaction is that people want justice. But justice doesn't come quickly enough. For some people, they've waited 30, 20, 10 years for justice. So I don't know. It just seems like there's an increase of arrest. I've noticed these reports increase. That's why I want to report on it. And a follow-up on the information in the description box. Why is this important to me? Because we were that family. We were involved in these type of things, and I can speak to it, but I'm only going to speak briefly. I know as a family and a survivor, okay, when you walk in and you encounter problems, you don't know what the details of that case. You don't know who's involved. I know that in our case, it was my mother, going through a difficult time, makes a poor choice. And a daycare worker, no one could have known that this guy was a registered pedophile. No one could have known that. Nobody could have known he was a registered sex offender. They didn't have that kind of the social utility apps that you have today, where you can find out somebody's a registered sex offender. And oftentimes what ends up happening is they throw the kids into foster care. The kids have no family, and they end up going through worse sometimes. And that was the issue that we were addressing. And when I referred to the judge that was presiding over our case, it was the intention that the courts would keep the family together, and that did not happen. And I'm not talking about separate homes. I'm just overall, when children are being adopted out, it's not the children that are the problem. And oftentimes I've heard this, they want to label the kids as the problem. The kids are a result. They're a product of the situation. They're not the criminals. That's why it was really important that the LA Sheriff's Department address the language that is used. These are not children they're prostituting. They're being used in prostitution. They're children first. They're being used. They're being peddled. Okay? When you hear the story, when they label these kids as prostitutes, they're children. They're not sexual, they're not that. So this language is used in prostitution. I think it's changing the way we look at things in the injustice, okay? A lot of people make the foolish choice of going into a place, and I've often heard it, and some of you have maybe heard of cases where it was a date rape case, or a case involving somebody who's been harassed, sexually assaulted in these cases. So you could go on to a list of things that are going on where adults are assaulted. So this is not just an issue for children, this is an issue for adults. And I referred to that case where a friend of mine who is a U.S. soldier was in his barracks, and he was raped by another man. He ended up committing suicide. So obviously this has nothing a sex crime can happen to a man, it can happen to a woman, it can happen to children. And that's why I think that there has to be clarification there. Otherwise, these cases shouldn't be open to the public for the protection and privacy of the victims. And that's a safety issue. That's ultimately the issue. I know a lot of people want answers, and oftentimes what kind of concerns me is that when you get into the story, when you hear a story like the story that's labeled Pizzagate or the story that's labeled Pedogate, which I'm not taking away from that, what I'm saying is it's more about the victims and survivors. For us, that's our primary concern, okay? Victims advocacy and those who support the survivors and survivor groups understand that there's a lot of trickery involved. There's forms of retaliation. People use all ways to attack victims. Okay, so my primary concern is not the issue itself, it's what's happening to the victims and families. Do they have the privacy they need? Do they have the therapy, the support they need? That's my primary concern, okay? Because a lot of times there's a lot of people that are dealing with survivor guilt. A lot of times in a lot of cases, you have suicide as a result or something worse, So I hope that we're careful in how we report it. But I do want to refer to SGT report. But because so many people want to debunk the story, and I know that's kind of this, I want to say it's like trying to get past the normalcy bias. It's the big elephant in the room. People don't want to talk about, but they know it exists. I'm trying to do it the best way I can because I want to comfort those, and I want them to understand that it does exist. It's just a lot of people are in denial, and once you get past the denial and you recognize that this has been going on, and a lot of the investigations are ongoing, as you can see from these reports. Okay, I want to reassure those people. Why do I feel this? As somebody who served in uniform in the military, I would want people to reassure me. I served. It takes a lot of courage to do what I'm doing. I can't always speak to everything specifically because there's issues within myself that I have to sort out. And at the end of the day, we're human beings. I mean, it's heart-wrenching. I can't get those sounds out of my ear. Okay, the day I walked in on this. Okay, and I've talked about some of you to you directly about it. Okay. I know a lot of people want to debunk this story. The thing is, I can't get into those stories because I don't know the whole story completely. I can only speak to the things I do know, and those are the stories that have already been adjudicated and that the cases are closed. I can only speak to those things. I can't really speak to ongoing investigations. And to me, it kind of distorts the information, and a lot of times what ends up happening is you really don't know the details of the story till it goes to court. And a lot of times what ends up happening is there's a lot of these cases get thrown out because of false accusations and false reporting. And I am concerned for that reason. Okay, but the emphasis is not on the false reporting. It's the emphasis is on the case itself and the victims involved and the language that is used. So I wanted to illustrate that because I know there are going to be more reports coming up, and we're doing this update because I obviously know it's important. It's important to establish some credibility here. I know a lot of times when people want to question your credibility, the credibility of the victim, that's obviously, and a lot of times the victims are so fragile that they really, a lot of times they don't remember what happened to them. So a lot of times these cases can't go forward because sometimes in the cases there's trauma. So I understand a lot of people want to question credibility. They want to question people. I understand that. I don't know that a lot of people are sensitive to that, though, okay? And they're not sensitive that sometimes there are things that we can't always answer. And as somebody who's a survivor and lived through this, I can tell you, a lot of times I block stuff out, so I can only speak in general terms. A lot of times I don't remember a lot of stuff that happened. I mean, that's just our way of surviving. But there's a point to surviving and there's a point to thriving. And the focus on therapy and recovery is to survive and thrive. I hope that you help us and encourage those who have been victims of a violent crime or sex crime, or in some cases, I mean, it's become more open, available to those people. The internet has made it available to a lot of people, but the thing is, privacy still matters. Those violations are still real, and there are really people that have been affected. And in some cases, it's destroyed friendships, it's destroyed families. And it's usually because a lot of people take on guilt that they never did. A lot of times are secondary victims. And a lot of times that the focus is not just on the victims, but the secondary victims, the people around them, the ones that have been through this with them. So I hope that you continue to listen to our posts, but we will update it from time to time. I just saw that these stories and a lot of things need to be clarified. A lot of people, they don't want to hear this. I understand why. I hope we've tried to address it as sensitively as possible. I've done the best I could. I don't know that I can go down this road. It's very heart-wrenching day after day. When I log off, sometimes I wonder if people really understand the struggles we deal with when we recognize how serious this is. And we try to cope the best we can. We're doing the best we can, A lot of times what ends up happening is people want to go out there and they want to congratulate a lot of people, but it's really, at the end of the day, there are a lot of people who are wrestling with things that no one knows privately, and that we look to support, we look to prayer support, we look for people to reach out and be comforting to one another, and pray with each other. It's that important. Reach out to those victims, reach out to those people, reach out to one another. The victims, the same thing. You reach out to other people. If there's a lot of people that can help you and want to help you, and they don't need to be thrown under the bus, they're trying to do their best, and that really matters to those who don't recognize it. Oftentimes, we focus a lot on the problems. We don't focus on the good things that are coming from it, and all the people that come together. So I want to focus on that as much more than I want to focus it on the negative aspects of it. It's hard to deal with this stuff every day. It wears you down. It's tiresome. It's exhausting, puts a lot of unnecessary pressure on people that didn't ask for this. Outside of that, people want to live their normal lives. They want to go and do things. They want to, enjoy the holidays. And a lot of times it's interrupted by these things. And we hope that we can focus on healthy activities and do things together, or work with others and go on outings. A lot of families have survived a lot, and it's a nice opportunity for people to cut each other some slack and help one another. There are a lot of people that right now that have not had that reassurance, and they need to know that there is a way, there is hope, there's opportunities here for victims and families and secondary victims and communities to come together and do outreach. That would be such a win-win for so many of these communities. They don't know how to reach out. There's church organizations that do outreach. I do know that there are a lot of shut-ins. There's a lot of people that they're afraid to go out. They've been through an ordeal, So you got to be able to reach out to one another. And in some cases, you have to know when to lay low. And a lot of times that's really hard because that comes with a lot of other issues as well. But I just hope and I want to encourage those to reach out to one another. This has been very difficult on people like ourselves. We've been through a lot with this. Sometimes there's a range of emotions that we have to sort out, and I don't know that a lot of people understand. And it's okay. I don't expect them to understand always, but I just hope that they're sensitive to what's going on, because at the end of the day, I have to shut off this. I have to recognize what is. I still live with the scars of abuse. I still live with the scars of a broken family. It hasn't completely gotten better. That's why I do this. I want to be outspoken because I've seen it destroy my own family. I saw what it did to my family. I saw what years of throwing kids into foster home has done. I see the estrangement. I see what it's like. I go home, there is no family to go to. It's very hard on the kids. It's very hard on our family. And I'm talking when I refer to my brothers and sisters, it's very hard to not come home to a family that's been broken for so many years. None of us kids growing up deserved this. We didn't do anything. We lost our family over this. We lost relationships over this. To me, it's like the real punishment is losing your family through it, or losing somebody, or watching somebody close to suicide, or struggle with the problems that come with it. A lot of times people don't know what we go through. But I haven't seen my family in a long time. You know how hard that is? Knowing that we didn't deserve it. We didn't deserve to be victims. We didn't deserve this. We lost our home and property over it. We lost relationships over this. We didn't do anything to deserve it either. So in a way, sometimes it's like being re-victimized over again when you can't go home and talk to your mom or dad. We were thrown in foster homes. I don't think the foster parents had my genuine interest in mind. No, I don't think so. But that's what the county courts had told us. They told us that they would be there for us and they would support us. Years later, we still live with the scars of a family separation due to issues of abuse. It hurts me because my family was like any other family. We went through hard times. My parents were going through a divorce. We didn't see it coming. So I have to live with that. I have to go home. There are holidays I have not spent with family. I've spent a lot of holidays by myself. No children, nobody. I would love to go home and hug my mom and spend time with her. It's interrupted a lot of people's lives, is what I'm saying. Normal relationships because of surviving abuse, and it's not our fault that happened. It's just, unfortunately, there are people in our life, they don't want to deal with this, and I understand why. It's easier to walk away and pretend we don't exist and ignore the problem. Unfortunately, I can't do anything with that. I have to let them go. There are a lot of people that they don't want to be tied into it, and I understand why. I might not see these people again. I have to accept that fact. And again, I don't want to be a victim the rest of my life. So I have to turn the corner. I have to recognize that this may have separated friendships and this may have separated people for years, and I don't know why. That kind of comes with the territory. A lot of people say, well, your life was chaotic. No, it wasn't chaotic because I caused it. It was that bad. The abuse at home was that bad. The problems at home were that bad. I'm willing to run away and reach out to people and ask them for help. A lot of people slammed the door on us, didn't want nothing to do with us after that. It hurts, but it's the way it is. Comes with the territory. I've run out of gas reaching out for help. There are shelters and programs we've asked for help. A lot of times they turned us away. So I'm asking you guys to help and support us because they don't always help us, okay? My family's been destroyed over it. That's why I'm asking you guys to support me. I don't say this casually. I woke up to this. I didn't ask for this at 14 years old. I didn't ask for this at 37. I didn't ask for this at 46 years old. I've come home to this every day for over 20 some years, not knowing what happened. People held information from us, not telling us the complete truth. I know what happened. I know enough. But the thing is when the county and the courts get involved, they say they're going to keep the family together. And that's opposite what happened. So when I talk about this case and I talk about these stories, this is real. This happened to me. I don't have to give you a line of, nonsense. I don't always know every detail to all the large cases out in there in the public eye. But I can speak to some of it. So I put this together because I want people to hear our story. And there are good parts to it, but there's a lot of brokenness. There are a lot of people who have been hurt that didn't have to get hurt in this. And I don't want to emphasize all on the hurt. I want to emphasize on the recovery. I want to emphasize more about how we can reach out to one another. Otherwise, what it is that we're left the victims again. And that's not what's going to happen. We're going to take back what happened to us, and we're going to live our lives, and we're going to do very well for ourselves. All things considered, we're going to do better, and we're going to live better, and we're going to have wonderful lives ahead of us. You don't let your problems become you. It's what you do with those problems. Thank you for listening. The Court of Public Opinion is a part of the Amateur Radio Network.